Hey everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of the INCHSTONES podcast. I have Kelly Castro here today. Like many women, mothers, caregivers on the autism journey, it's when you leave the house and interact with your community that you find that you are not unique and that you are forging a path to better understand and support your child. And it always comes when you move past isolation and interacting. And today is no different. Kelly is with Carson's Cookie Dough. I actually got to meet her husband at a booth during an Autism Speaks walk. And again, it is so foundational to the work that I do and to what Kelly's going to share about hers, that in getting out of your house, connecting with others, whether it's a support group, a walk, or just in your community, you will find that there are more stories in spades that are seeking to be told. It's why I love hosting the INCHSTONES podcast, to get those stories out. Kelly, thank you so much for being here today, and I can't wait to delve into conversation.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So let's jump right in. What is your personal journey into motherhood and your connection to the autism community?
So I have three sons. My oldest son is 15 and my youngest son is 9. And I love being a mom. I've always wanted to be a mom. It's such a joy. I truly enjoyed the experience as a whole. My youngest son was diagnosed with autism when he was 2. And, the first few years were very fuzzy. It was confusing and we were, it was just a blur of doctor's appointments, therapy appointments, and trying to find the right school. And as you said, anytime you step out of your house, especially when you're in all these different waiting rooms with other parents in similar situations, you get to talking. And I kept meeting parents of adult children on the spectrum, and they kept saying the same thing. They didn't know each other, but they had the same verbiage. They said, when your kid turns 21, he's going to fall off a cliff. So enjoy it now, And I came to find out that meant, all of our services we receive are through Carson school, and that ends at 21. So, all of Carson's progression, every new skill he earns, it's hard fought. He worked really hard to get that skill, and it's very celebrated. And I found myself kind of celebrating it, but then thinking, oh, but he's going to lose this one day. Like I pictured him like walking up a mountain, and then at 21, he's going to start kind of falling down that same mountain. So that broke my heart.
There's so much, like, I guess I just got the chills because I think one of the things I love talking about, and you just gave the most beautiful example of this, is there's so much nuance and complexity in this, right? You can build something that is so meaningful and powerful, and it forces such a beautiful presence to the journey, to being the best mother to a child with autism. And yet always in the background, always in the foreground, always sort of this like floating around that present moment is the fear of what comes next. And it's nestled so deeply and so ingrained in mothers like you and I. We can't divorce from that.
It's always there.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, it's there.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm glad we're both laughing because if you can't laugh about it, you're like, it's literally always there. Like there's not an exercise, there's not a work in mindfulness that I can do to get rid of that. So, okay. So because of all that, was that the launch point for Carson's Cookie Dough?
Yes. I decided I was putting so much energy into worrying about it.
Yes.
Was 6 years old, 5, 6 at the time. And I thought, let me just put this energy into doing something instead of just worrying. It's exhausting and draining. So I decided to start a cookie company. Carson loved making cookie dough. During COVID, we were doing all the home therapies, which is so,
again, laughable.
Yeah, it's like, it's doing OT and speech over Zoom with the expert on the other side of that computer working really hard to try and communicate to me how to communicate to him. And I found that cookie dough, making the cookie dough, there's a ton of OT in that. There's a ton of speech, receptive, expressive. So he really responded to that. And, we just kind of fell in love with making cookie dough, and we were giving it to all of our friends, and, it was a nice little thing to help get us through. So we spent a solid year getting our recipes together. I have 3 boys, they love to eat. So it worked out great. Our neighbor has 4 kids, also love to eat, same ages, lots of cookie taste testers amongst us. So yeah, we just kind of perfected our recipes. I went about getting the licensing and, the certifications that I needed, kind of figuring out what do I need to do to functionally make this happen. And I realized I would need a commercial kitchen. I just kind of put the pieces into place. So almost 3 years ago, we started Carson's Cookie Dough. We filed the paperwork and, I started where I was with what I had. I didn't have some huge investment. I probably started with a few $100s and I found a local community kitchen at the Westwood Community Center and I rented it by the hour. It was very simple, very quaint, and it was great. I had no sense of urgency. Carson was so young. I wasn't worried. Not quite yet. I mean, you know, I didn't have the sense of urgency.
Urgency from a sense of the passion was there, right? Is what I
Yeah.
hear. Like you want to make it be something purposeful and meaningful, but not on the side of like we have to fix this tomorrow.
Right. It didn't have to, I have, it's at that time I was thinking I have like 15 years,
Mm.
And so, I got into the community kitchen. I started working with my first adult programs. Schools have adult programs, students 18 to 21, and part of the curriculum is they need to do a work-based learning. That's where these individuals go out into the community and they get some job skills. My first job, I was 14 years old, and you learn the intricacies, the nuances, and a lot of these individuals never had that opportunity. So it's a great way to expose them to what jobs are available and kind of teach them the different parts of being at a real work site. So it's a great program and I loved it. From day one, I was hooked. I was curious because my son was 6. There's a very big difference between a 6-year-old child and a 20-year-old adult. And I didn't know how it would go, and I was truly hooked from day one. I had a retired preschool special education teacher helping me. And she said the same thing. Like, I've always worked with preschoolers. How's this going to go? They left that first day. I'll never forget. We looked at each other and we are like, that was amazing. We were hooked. So then that sense of urgency went from 0 to 60 in that half hour, whatever, the students were there. And, I started hearing from more schools that wanted to come out. They were having trouble finding work sites, especially work sites where these individuals could really do the real work. So it wasn't my kitchen. It wasn't my space. So I couldn't welcome as many programs as I would have liked.
Yeah, so look at us here. So you were basically renting space from a commercial business by the hour, reaching out to the adult day programs of young adults that had aged out of their schooling program, getting them to then come in like a community-based interaction learning and simply giving them the opportunity to learn how to make cookie dough.
Exactly.
And at that point, was it Carson's Cookie Dough yet? I mean, was it a brand or were you just like, this is going to be something, let's keep building from the different Lego pieces?
Both. I mean, it was Carson's Cookie Dough. The LLC was filed, the paperwork was filed,
Right.
and that name, we had our logo and our little labels. And, it was very much exactly as you said. I said, I'll start where I am and it'll just build on itself. We love the idea of cookies because there's a lot of jobs in cookies and making cookie dough, a lot of steps, a lot of jobs. There's the labeling, there's the actual steps of making the cookies. And you can make 20 at a time, or you can make 2,000. You know what I mean? Like it's a very flexible business model,
Very
I guess.
scalable.
Yeah, it's very scalable. So we, again, the initial plan was we'll just rent a couple hours a week at this great kitchen. They're wonderful. But after, we worked at the first school, other schools started reaching out to me and I had to say no more often than I wanted to. So we need our own space. So we did a Kickstarter, May of 2024, and we raised $52,000 in 30 days. Yeah, it was incredible. Just seeing the support behind us from our community, our family, people we didn't even know. That was kind of the moment for me. I realized, people, it's not that they don't want to hire adults with disabilities. They don't really know how, I think. They don't know how to approach it. They don't know how to set them up for success. What are the steps involved? Well, what do they not know? They don't know. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really, I loved it because we raised enough money to get us into our kitchen now. And I loved it because I saw firsthand the support, the rallying.
I was going to say that you saw that, and it's not about the dollar amount. It's more about, oh my gosh, what I'm going to provide resonates so deeply with people that may not sit in this exact position, but man, do they want to support how they can.
Exactly. Most of our supporters don't even have a child with autism. They're not directly connected with someone with autism, but they just wanted to help. They saw the value in it and their enthusiasm was infectious, and it was really, It was,
So aside from sort of the challenge of getting your own space and getting your own commercial kitchen, what other challenges did you face in bringing this to life? Like you said that probably that allowed for you to not have to say no to so many people that were reaching out. But what were those other hurdles that you faced? What were some of those other challenges that you guys faced along the way?
yeah, I mean, listen, I feel like any entrepreneur, any founder, there's no easy road. There's just no, it's just not a straight shot. It's winding. And, there's so many decisions that have to be made. And you're right. I do have at the same time 3 boys, one of whom has a lot of needs. So it's, and the work overlaps into the personal life all the time. This is probably our daily dinner conversation. And
Right.
I'm really lucky that my family, they're really into it with me. They're all in, and I'm really grateful that I get to do this with their full support. So the challenges, I think my biggest challenge truly is I'm so passionate and I fall in love with every student that comes in here, every adult worker that comes in here. I want to do everything right now. I see that I have this, like I said, the sense of urgency went from 0 to 60. It probably went from 0 to 160 because I just want this for them so bad. And I see what they're capable of. I see just like what a simple accommodation can do for them and their loyalty and just their dedication to their work. I always thought, even at 14, work was something I needed to do. And
Mhm.
they look at it like works and something I get to do here.
Life purpose is not just for those of us that are typically developing, right?
No, at all.
There's such a depth of humanity behind every one of these children and young adults, and that that actually means even more that purpose is that important. I'll give you an example. There's a company that uh, I interviewed there. They have a pit crew, and it's all of special needs adults, and they put together the packaging for this product. And I was interviewing the manager, and he said, what's interesting, and I'm sure this will resonate with you, is that knowing that those individuals were given a purpose to actually benefited the typical workers in spades because it validated that sense of purpose, that sense of I get to do this. I get to wake up and be so much part of something that's bigger than me. And it doesn't matter if it's cookies. It doesn't matter for me if it's, putting together IEP plans for moms that are in the trenches. It doesn't matter if you're putting together a box of shipment items, right? That sense of purpose is so important. And it's incredible that, again, you were building this, but also having that reflection enough baked into the process.
Yeah. I mean, I truly believe these guys, they make any room they're in a better room. You know what I mean? Like we're open to the public. We have a storefront. And it's funny, we see some people, customers walk in and they just walk in because we're in the neighborhood. They don't understand what we are before they come in. And you just see them once they realize, they soften, they smile, they just become, I feel like their best version. And I just think, the world would be a better place if we could just incorporate our whole community, including these members of our community, into every aspect of it, including the workforce, because they truly do make it better.
I see you and I'm absorbing your story in a way that this doesn't feel like it's just Carson's cookie dough. This feels like you're holding up a mirror to others to do something similar because I think, my children are around your son Carson's age. Millie's 11, Mac is 8.5. And I think that there's a lot of mirroring that gets to happen. Like you said, we get to do this, the mirroring of getting to start something that can create such an impact. What is your hope for Carson's cookie dough in the future?
My hope is that we can have a true impact. I mean, my primary hope, my goal from day one has been to provide meaningful employment. We are scaling up. I've said I started with where I was with what I had. There's no grand $2 million investment. So we are working up, and that's to creating a stable work environment, where it's sustainable employment. We're utilizing our work-based learning programs and our vocational training programs to get there. I'm learning a ton. And in the background, I'm working with distributors and other organizations to help us scale up our business. So we have consistent influx of business so that we can provide work for our workers. And so that's very exciting, growing the business itself. But I'm most excited about other steps that we have coming. We're creating a sister nonprofit that will help kind of create a playbook, like you said, like mirror what we're doing. So to share it, because we're not fixing the huge unemployment rate in my 800 square foot bakery. That's just not going to happen. But we can have the ripple effect that I've seen already happening, show like this is all you need to do, and you can have this amazing employee, this very loyal, dedicated worker who's going to make your workplace better, and it could be something so simple. We had a few of our workers had trouble cracking eggs,
Eggs.
so one of our job coaches found an egg cracker. It's like $20 on Amazon. And every time, boom, there goes that barrier is gone. We have the egg cracker. It works every time. And just
Yeah.
seeing that tiny tool now allows one of our youngest students to completely independently make 40 pounds of cookie dough using our gigantic mixer by herself. And just seeing her confidence and her it's changed everything about her. She stands up taller. And when she has friends come into the bakery, she's like, I made that, and she's so proud. And it's like, you get hooked, you can't
And it's
help
a
but
lot.
love.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking to the inchstone mentality, where it doesn't have to be this grand, massive skill or plan. It has to be the next right thing. It has to
That's
be the conscious choice to not let the severity of the mountain and the mentality of what to get to the mountain tackle the day to day. I know that even in just that one story, that's what seems to resonate, is that inclusion and support. I often say it ends up helping the teacher as well. Like, it sort of reinforces, my own work, and you're sharing that example. It's like reinforcing of why you're doing this. It does actually just take one simple change, one inch stone of progress, to have such a ripple effect onto that one person. I guess, you know, I can't help but ask, like, how has your motherhood, especially in what you've grown, reshaped your own sense of identity? It has to have affected you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, I guess thinking back to before I was a mom, and, it's funny, I just visited the town where I grew up over the weekend, and I ran into some old friends, and it was just like interesting to be back there and just remember before, and it's just my life, my outlook on everything is completely different. I think any parent is, but being a mom of a son on the spectrum, it changed everything. I think it changed everything about me. It changed everything about his siblings, his father. You just look at the world differently. And I find myself, things have been boiled down to what's important, yeah, the noise and everything. There's so much to do. And, that you have to kind of figure out. Our brains work differently, so there's no time for some of these other things that I used to get like bogged down with.
I know. It's actually, again, it's a beautiful byproduct of the process that I say probably every day. There's not a single woman who has profound autism. Well, for me, I got profound non-speaking autism on their bingo card, right? That was not even one of those things that was a highlighted option for me to even read, like, or intake. And so when you get to be so present and act upon having to be present for children that demand your presence, that byproduct is not something that you ever would have anticipated, because you never thought of something so hard providing such a incredible life luxury. All the theologians and religions and motivational speakers of the world talk about the power of now. This is like, it's like the thing, right? Be here now. Be where your feet are. The power of now. Like, don't look at the past. Don't look at the future. Stay right in the moment. And it's like, guess what'll do that to you? Working with this population of kids. And again, you say it out loud, again, we can laugh. I love that we're laughing so much, because it's like, it really is. Like, you wanna look at everyone around you that's rushing and urgent and all these different typical things, and you wanna go, "I have the perfect way that'll slow you down. I have exactly the right thing that's gonna slow you down. You wanna come do it? You wanna come make some cookie dough with my kid? Do you wanna go take an hour walk and watch on reservation with my son, who requires a harness and all this input?" It'll get you really mindful of your present really fast, but that's never that conscious choice. And so it begs of you, and it's so cool to see, and you share this about Carson's cookie dough and the evolution of it. It just constantly reinforces the present moment of moving through it and growing in that way.
Spot on. It's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
What do you think, because you're sharing, that this has affected your other sons as well. Um, you know, inclusion is such a, this broad concept now. And I have a typical developing, 13-year-old daughter, who has, two siblings like Millie and Mac. How do you think that that concept, because it's so embedded in my home, right? Like my daughter Morgan is so acutely, this is her life. How do we shift that inclusion nature to maybe in the company that you're building? I'm building like a product to help moms and caregivers as a special needs like consultant advocate. How do we move, and what do you think you've learned from bringing those people in and making it inclusive, not just to the community you serve, but to ones that are looking to help?
I think the more we can get out there, the more we can show up and say, we're here. These individuals are part of our community. They're
Mm.
phenomenal people. They're a phenomenal addition. It's funny. We were in the community kitchen, which was just a kitchen, and then
Hmm.
we were looking for our own space. I could not find just a kitchen as hard as I tried. So ours came with the storefront, which is just a taste of New Jersey. I was nervous. I was really very nervous. I used to work in customer service. I was a waitress through college, and people can be mean, and I thought, oh, I hope people don't come in and they're like mean to the workers. I'll like go bananas. I'm so proud to say I'm I'm impressed with everyone who's come to our store. They're kind, they're understanding. Like I say, these guys make everyone better people. They make them their best version of themselves. I think the more we can get out there, any opportunity we receive to go do like we were at Bristol Myers Squibb's campus the other day to do a tabling event, and we jumped at the opportunity. We loved it. Our crew loves it. They feel so proud to show what they did. The workers, they love it. They just gravitated towards the table and they loved hearing our guys talk about, yeah, I made this cookie. This is how I made it. I think just the more we can get out there, I see it at school. When we were in school, there was not really much inclusion happening. I didn't know much about autism because of that. But now I love, Carson goes to a school that has typical children as well. And he's very much involved with the typical fourth graders. And they really do a great job of making sure Carson interacts with them and they interact with Carson. And I think it's so beneficial for all of these opportunities that are provided that just weren't there when we were younger. And I think it's just going to make the world a better place for our children when they're older. I think it's heading in a good direction.
Before we wrap up here, I'd love to have you answer this for other mothers who might be having that spark inside of them going, I want to do something meaningful like this. I want not to replicate, but as something, you're such an inspiring founder in this role as a autism mom. If another mother maybe is sitting on an idea, but this feels so overwhelming, what would you want her to consider at first?
I would say, I said it, start where you are with what you have. I think
Mm.
any idea can start small. Whether you go to if you're selling something, you go to one of the pop-up markets, like a farmer's market or a festival or a fair. Just start very small, learn what are the rules and regulations, of course, and just start where you are. There's so many opportunities to start a business without some huge $2 million investment. And even like, you can grow and build on itself. Like it took us a year to get in here, and it's taken me 2 years to really figure out the best setup in here. We're still learning more every single day. And, it's so exciting. And for me as a mom, it's brought me so much peace,
Mhm.
and happiness. I did this for Carson, and it's done as much for me as, I hope it will do for Carson one day. My kids, I think it's a great example. It shows them one person can make a difference, but that person does need a whole community around them. So get involved with your neighbors, get involved with your community members. I think wonderful, wonderful things can happen when you have hope and when you have a great community that joins you in that. I've seen it firsthand. I think the ripple effect is very real. I would say just do it. Start where you are with what you have and
Yeah.
just start going down the path. It's going to wind all sorts of crazy directions you never imagined.
Yeah.
Our cookies are in Red Bull Stadium, Sports Illustrated Stadium and for Gotham and Red Bulls games. I never would have. That wasn't even on the like radar for me. It's so, it's crazy. You never know where that path will lead, but I would just say just take the first step and see where it goes.
Absolutely. Kelly, thank you for this conversation. I think that, your story is more than just build a business, and not just build a business to future plan for your son on the spectrum, but about what looks like to create something so meaningful inside this middle place of life and where real caregiving is sitting alongside it. And real uncertainty. And I think that so many mothers listening are going to see themselves in parts of your journey in that love and presence and questions about the future and determination can build something really not just profound, but also really radical. And what you created with Carson Cookie Dough isn't just a product. It really is a reflection of possibility and about what our children, my Million Mac, deserve as they grow too. I'm so thankful that I stumbled upon your tent at an Autism Speaks Walk, and that you took the time to share with us today. I know this conversation is going to stay with people long after they finish listening. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story. Thank you. Thank you for
Absolutely. Absolutely. And until next time, everyone, here on the INCHSTONES podcast.